Hi, welcome to the Thunderdome, where we have all of your Thunderdome needs and necessities all in one great one stop and shop place. The Thunderdome.
What's up, all you doodles and doodlers out there, you schemers and dreamers, and welcome back to another episode of Doodle Talk. This is episode possibly either 39 or 40, and the reason I'm saying possibly is because I might be calling an audible for this. I might be moving this episode that I'm recording right now ahead of schedule. There is another one that I have already recorded, but because today I'm talking about the One Piece live action, and I think while it's still kind of a hot topic, while there's still people kind of watching it for the first time and talking about it, I kind of wanted to get it out. I mean, it's not like that important that I get it out so quick, because it's not like this is gonna be some crazy controversial take or anything, or this is a long form podcast. I'm not making a gotcha video or anything, or no one's dying to see my take on the One Piece live action, because that's not really what I even talk about most of the time. But I do, because I kind of forgot about multiple videos that I was recording. The timeline it didn't get messed up, but this video that I'm recording now wasn't going to come out for an extra week later than I originally thought. So just for the sake of brevity, and not brevity, but for the sake of putting this out in a timely manner for the topic that I want to talk about, I think this is going to come out. So if this becomes episode 39, that's why. And then if you'll see the week after that, which is a topic that I talk about that is not as topical, that's probably going to become episode 40, but you, the viewer, will not really know any of that's going on. So I wanted to clarify though, because it will be kind of confusing probably the next week when I put out the other one. I might even try and go and change some parts of it. Unfortunately, I already edited it and uploaded it to YouTube, because I'm really just trying to get ahead on work and stuff. Because the other reason is I'm going to be in Texas soon. I leave for Texas a week from now. So actually, I think by the time when this video drops, if you're watching this when this video just came out, hey, how's it going? I'm leaving for Texas tomorrow, so that's cool. I'm gonna be there for just over a week. I'm gonna be in the States for just over a week. Cannot wait. But because all this, I consider this is my Doctor Strange arc in the Doodle Talk universe, because there's a lot of weird time traveling going on where I had to write everything out schedule wise, and be oh, okay, on this day, because I forgot about a video that I had already recorded. I didn't forget about it. I was working on it, and I was oh my gosh, right, this is coming out. I forgot that because I had doubled up on videos a few weeks back, that I was now going to have the problem of the podcast I'm recording today wasn't going to come out for 2 weeks from now. So just to kind of simplify things, I think I'm just gonna do whatever feels the most natural, and it's not gonna matter. The way you're seeing it is gonna be however you see it on YouTube. But yeah, because of that though, I don't have a lot of I don't have any housekeeping or whatever, because you're actually probably gonna hear you're gonna hear me talk about probably what's come out. And you know what? So I will say this though, my comic, the little comic I was working on, should be coming out. When this is out, it might already be out or is about to come out, because I think I'm going to put that out right before I go to the States. So check that out, look for that, and there will probably also be a YouTube video of my process, kind of making of video for the little comic. Please go read it, go check it out. It's really short. It's just a quick little scroll. There's not a lot of words. I think you can get through it pretty quick. But that's the only thing. And if this for some reason this one does come out later, it's okay, because it's all still relevant, and it's all things that have still come out relatively recently. But that's it. There's nothing. I don't have anything that I can talk about super topical as far as art stuff, just to avoid any weird confusion and more timeline shit happening. So let's jump right into it, because I don't know how long this is going to go, because I actually have written down a lot of my thoughts to make this very cohesive, because I know I can get very tangential and ranty when it comes to talking about something like this. So I actually watched the first 3 episodes of the live action One Piece show on Netflix, and I did a little prediction in last week's episode, kind of going over my initial thoughts that were purely just based off of what we had seen so far. So a few trailers and like the one scene with like Sanji and Zeph where they're kind of talking back and forth to each other. And my initial impressions were like, some of the production value looks really good. It's nice to see the characters. Parts of it are kind of cringe. I'm not like in love with it, and but I'm not gonna hold judgment because I want to give it a full fair shot. And like, I guess I will say I did enjoy it more than I initially thought I would, so I will give it to them. Let's start with the positives, right? So it was better than my expectations, but I'm still not the biggest fan, right? And here's the thing. So before we jump into the positive and negatives, let's preface this by saying, like, I'm not the biggest fan so far, and I'm only 3 episodes in. So it could get a little bit better, but I could end up enjoying it more. But honestly, there's a slightly larger chance that I'll end up liking it less, just because there's more things that they could do in a way that I won't really like. But that's besides the point. The thing is here is like, can you blame me for having low expectations? Can you blame any of us who are fans of like anime and manga, who like year after year have just seen all of these properties just been obliterated and destroyed by like cash grab live action adaptations, you know? And because I mentioned like Cowboy Bebop, you know, and that really kind of like tainted parts of Cowboy Bebop for me. And I wanted to be I gave it a shot. I was optimistic. I actually enjoyed a lot of the parts of the first couple of episodes, and then it just went all downhill from there. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen with One Piece. I have friends who have watched the whole thing, and they said it was good throughout, but I just don't think, like, I want to preface this by saying, like, just to me personally, live action never really looks good. Like, I hate any kind of like a theatrical kind of thing. For like in Japan, they do the One Piece kind of like theater shows, and I think they're doing like on ice, like an ice skating show. And like, if you told me like, Sam, we got 2 VIP tickets to that, like the One Piece ice show, I would rather just fucking like, I'd rather eat a bag of shit than go into that. I'm sorry, I know that sounds like really extreme and shitty of me, pun intended, but there's a visceral cringe feeling when I see stuff like that, and I just can't escape it. It makes my skin crawl, and I just hate it with every fiber of my being, because, and I mean, like, my wife, Asami, is Japanese, and she agrees with me. Like, the live action theater plays and stuff, like, some people love it, right, you know, but she agrees with me too. And it's good to know that like someone who read One Piece as a kid, like literally growing up with it, who thinks very fondly of One Piece in all facets, like also agrees that it looks really cringe. And there's a line, and I'll get to this as my like closing thoughts. I think I have some thoughts on like why live adaptations don't work, why live action doesn't work, and why anime and manga are such a special medium, but I want to kind of save that for the end. So now that I've given a little bit of a preface of like because right, everyone's gonna have a different kind of like set of ideals that they're kind of running on, that's going to judge how much they enjoy something. And I wanted to just get that out there, that like I'm someone who just like instinctively does not like any kind of live action adaptation of really anything. You know, Scott Pilgrim's good, and I actually really liked Speed Racer, the one with Emile Hirsch and like John Goodman, and the dude who the guy who plays Driver X. I forgot his name, but he's in Lost, like the main character of Lost. That dude. It's pretty cool, actually. Shout out to the chimpanzee. But that's another stylistic thing that we can get into towards the end. But so that's kind of how I'm thinking about it going in. But because and this is the thing, I'll say this, going into watching the One Piece live action, because I had seen how much they cared, and because Oda was like directly involved, while I still believe that probably helped a lot, but it's not gonna make enough of a change, you know. Because I saw the care and attention to detail that was being put into the live action, that made me want to give it a fair shot and put all of my judgments aside and just watch it on as like a clean slate first watch, right? And so let's start with the positives. First of all, the production value is really good. As you'd expect from like a bajillion-dollar Netflix thing. I haven't talked at length with any friends or anything yet, just kind of like first impressions, and some people have mentioned that while it does look like the set and the stage and like the costumes are all pretty top notch, there's a lot of that like cinematic in air quotes kind of filter like put on everything, and you always see this in like first live action shows or movies, and then when a lot of like sci-fi and fantasy, because you know if you have it's essentially people cosplaying and acting, right? It's another level of like, obviously acting in the first place is just cosplaying, and I think about that a lot, and it's really funny to me, but this is another level because it's legit cosplaying, because you know you're cosplaying as the characters from a manga and anime. And if you just showed that in like regular light, everyone would look so goofy that you would not be able to take it seriously. So I think in an attempt to, first of all, like kind of add a there's like a tone and like color choices that you make cinematically, that you want to keep the world cohesive, but then it also acts as like a little bit of a cheat so that it looks kind of like cinematic, and gives it more, it's easier to believe that this is like the real One Piece world, because it's like it sets itself apart from our actual world. And you know, cinematography, that this is what you're kind of trying to achieve in a lot of senses, right? And the way that like superhero movies or, you know, sci-fi or fantasy, the way they do this a lot is by heavily altering, you know, the color correction and like adding these certain tones and filters. And the One Piece production crew must have had like a preset that they made that was just called like sepia as fuck. Like, I don't know. I actually chose this color. This is essentially like this like yellow glow that you see is kind of what like 90% of all the scene. It's funny because it doesn't bug me too much, but it's like you see a nighttime shot where the colors are more balanced and like more like, I don't even know how to say, like more like well lit and just properly lit. And it's so jarring because you would go from like this kind of like baked sepia, and then it cuts to like just a very more even and balanced like color palette with like a night scene or something, and it is a little jarring, I'm not gonna lie. Shout out to the new hat. Went to the Chum store the other day, and I really like this I See You. It's like a designer that they're collaborating with, an artist, and I've never had a yellow hat like this, so yeah, shout out to the new hat. Works perfect because this is a sepia episode, right? So as far as like the production values and stuff, besides a few things, and the other thing is the camera. So this is getting super nitpicky, and one thing I'd like to also add in as a preface here is like, this is me being nerdy as fuck, nitpicking the One Piece live action, and also talking about the parts that I liked. That's it. I am no voice of authority. I am no more special than the next person. If you enjoyed One Piece, if you're enjoying the One Piece live action, more power to you. I'm enjoying it. I'm still having a good time. But I am going to say some negative things about it. And I'm just trying to be honest, because like I feel like most people, myself included, a lot of the time you get yourself in a camp, and even if you really really enjoy it, if you said you weren't going to, you'll like lie and say that say the opposite of like how you actually feel, right? And because I knew I was doing this, I was like, you can't do that because it's gonna come across, and like I want to be very honest about this, and I want to also say that like that what I say doesn't matter. It's just I hope it can give you an insight, or like, because I love talking to people about this stuff, and I have one like main friend group that I can talk to them about it, and it's great. But this is kind of nice because like I could nerd out. Like this is like English class to me, where I could like write an essay on my thoughts on like the One Piece live action, and I would actually like do a ton of research and like get super into it. Like I would, when you're doing something that you're really interested in, when you're doing research or you're making a project or doing something, even if it was like school homework, like you actually can commit yourself to it, and it's really nice. So that's all I want to say. My opinion my opinion doesn't matter more than anyone else's, and you should enjoy the stuff you want to enjoy. And if you disagree with anything I say, that's great. Let me know in the comments too, like if you have a counterpoint to something, because I've already gone back and forth on a few things here. But yeah, that's my like an additional preface that I want to say. That's probably the most important one too, is like enjoy what you want to enjoy, like what you like. Don't let me talking about it negatively impact the way that you're going to watch it. And then on that note, there are going to be spoilers, but this is, if this is really barely spoiling it, but if you're interested in One Piece and you've never even gotten through like essentially the first arc, then it's like, I'm sorry, it's 25 years old. It's like spoiling Beauty and the Beast or something at this point. But just be warned, I will not be talking about any like recent stuff, obviously. So if you are like mostly caught up in the manga or anime, don't worry, I will make sure that I don't spoil anything. This is just going to be talking about the live action. Okay, sorry. So production, color, stuff like that. Moving on to camera movements and some of the fight sequences. I like a lot of the fight sequences and like the choreography, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's pretty fun. It's very, One Piece is a kind of wacky world, and it's a shonen. It's a shonen manga, shonen anime where good guy fights bad guy, they battle and things happen, right? So I think I give a lot of leeway in this category, because this is not the defining thing for me of enjoyability, and I know it is for some people. And look, if it was just dog shit, then yes, it would be a thing. If it was like the Dragon Ball live action where he's like making a energy ball trying to do a Kamehameha, and like it just looks shit, like that is going to obviously impact it. But I think they do a pretty good job. It does get a little like I have more so than any of the choreography or the fight scenes, is like some of it's just kind of repetitive, and this is also with the camera shots and stuff like that. And this is why I was saying this is getting really nitpicky, but like they use this kind of like slightly, I'd love to see the lens. I don't know if it's an actual lens or just an effect that they're using, but it's like a super wide fisheye to the point where it's like barely like bending the lens, and they use it for these really tight close-up shots. And I get it. I think it's very like action movie style, and kind of does lend itself well sometimes, but I think they overuse it a little bit, and it's not like disorienting or anything. This is more of a personal preference kind of thing, but you do just sort of start to see the same type of like close-up, this shot, close up, this shot, close up, and sometimes you just kind of wish there was like a little more room to breathe, because they do such a good job with some of the fight scenes of like the it's really awesome, and I appreciate this because it's choreographed almost like you're watching an anime or reading a manga, where like the panel motion is gonna Like Toriyama is really, really good. If you read some of the original like Dragon Ball, like not Dragon Ball Z, like when Goku's a kid, um, it really shines there in a lot of like the tournaments and stuff, because he's just a master of like portraying motion across panels, up and down pages, which is such a difficult thing to do if you've never tried. It's really hard to, and this is all composition, right? What you're seeing in the panel, what you're seeing on the screen. This goes for animation as well. Animation, you have even just way more stuff that you can do with it, because you're really, you even more so than live action in animation, you have the ability to like, you are deciding what the focal point is and where your eye is being drawn across the screen. And I think they do a very good job with this in the live action, in a lot of like the fighting and action scenes. But it in some of the other scenes, just like close-ups or like character talking and stuff like that, they do kind of, it's a little overkill with the just the super tight extra close-up kind of. It just starts to remind me of, you know, like it's the like meme shot of like the crazy fisheye like crazy anime face. I'll try and put it up. It's been using, like, there's a pain one from Naruto, and there's a few other ones when it's like, it's normally used for a villain to kind of show their like distorted like world's view and show them as like a scary person. You almost get into that territory, and that's just kind of random, but that's kind of how I felt about it. And but besides that, you know, obviously it's well produced, it's really good. The sets and costumes, which is what I want to talk about next, are really, really good. I would say the sets are all amazing. I'm almost like, I honestly think like sets and costume might be my favorite part of this show so far, which is like, I don't know if I would have thought that would be my favorite part, but they do a really good job, and it's just like, you can tell that that's where a lot of the money went into, which is great, because in order for One Piece to work, it has to be believable that it's the One Piece world, not our world, the One Piece world. And that includes tons of ships and boats and crazy towns and like the marine bases and stuff. There's a lot of architecture that is just wonky and not like the real world. And I think they do a really good job of portraying that and taking their own little twists and stuff like that. And yeah, and for the costumes, I would just want to give a huge shout out to whoever the costume designers are, and whoever was the I don't know exactly how the workflow works, but like the creative director, the person who was working on the costume and makeup department, who kind of had the decision to choose what characters were wearing what. I'm sure there was a collaborative effort there, but like, oh, so good so far. Some of like, obviously some of Luffy's is hard. Some of Luffy's clothes like fit him a little weird, and he, like, it looks good in manga, but it's just kind of looks a little weird in real life. And like, he doesn't have the sandals either, and I get it. I really, if there's one thing I can give them a pass on, is just like, you can't have the protagonist doing fight scenes with like fucking just the floppy sandals that Luffy actually wears. I wish they could, but I can't use that as a like a complaining point or anything. I understand the shoes are a little weird. I'm not sure. You know what? I don't mind the shoes. They're a little weird, but it's like, I would rather them be that than just look like a weird like piratey Converse shoe or something, you know. But the costumes, man, most of the costumes are so sick, and they change their outfits a lot, and it's all based off of either what they wore in the manga or a lot of the color walks. These, luckily, I literally had this on my, so these are the cover illustrations, and also additional like color drawings that Oda does. They come out every few issues and stuff, and he always draws them with like different clothes and different styles, and you know, like, just you see the Straw Hats in a way that you normally would never see them. And you can tell that this is, I mean, if I was one of the costume designers on that show, I would be like, I'm in heaven, because this is like, you have so much stuff to work with, and then you get to put your own little twist on it and stuff. And I'm gonna put the picture up, but the first scene that Nami is in, she's wearing the outfit that is like from the original sketches, some of the first original sketches that Oda ever did of Nami's character before she was even Nami. And that is literally my favorite design of Nami out of all of them. And just seeing that, I recognized it immediately. And I know that's a little bit of a deep cut, but I feel like if even like just pretty general, if you're a fan of One Piece and you've seen some of those like color walks and stuff, you might have recognized it. And I'm sure you recognize a lot of the other clothes, but that one was just like, to put that in the first scene, it just happens to be like my favorite design. I think it's a really sick design because it's also kind of an homage to the OG design that Toriyama does of Bulma. You've probably seen it. It's a pretty famous figurine too, where it's got the I'll throw it up on the screen too, but you know, it's got the like the shorts or the jeans, like one leg is kind of cut and like with the tank top style or whatever, and it's just so sick. I'm not a figurine guy, but that is the one figurine that I actually would love to have, the Bulma one. And just when you start seeing some of these little details in the costumes and the design, and like all the Zoro ones are really sick too. The actor who plays Zoro, that's actually, I think if there's one person who just like overall aesthetically works, it's probably Zoro. I think his demeanor and everything just works really well. But I'll get into the actual characters and acting in a second too. And then there's one more thing, just for the production side of things, right, is music. And the music is really good. As a musician myself, someone who studied composition. Oh, check it out, yeah. At UNT, let's go. That's awesome. I didn't even do that on purpose. I did this because this is green and it goes with the hat. So as somebody who studied composition and music theory and is a big nerd in that shit too, I originally wanted to, after school, start doing film music production. That's what I wanted to do originally. And kind of, you know, obviously things changed, but very special place in my heart, and I think they do a wonderful job. I think the music is amazing. They take little hints. I was actually really curious because, you know, there are openings and original music used throughout One Piece, and there's some iconic songs and iconic themes, and I'm sure some of it will take a second listen to really get all of the repeating motifs and themes that they use. But and I'm actually a pretty big fan of like Pirates of the Caribbean. I just enjoyed them a lot as a kid. Those are fun movies that you don't have to take seriously. Like they're the first three are pretty solid. I know it gets kind of up and down after that, which is to be expected. But just talking about the first trilogy, fun movies. Hans Zimmer wrote some bangers. That's iconic, you know. Like, I didn't even sing the melody right, and you probably know the theme that I'm talking about, right? And I think One Piece, they actually, I haven't looked it up. I need to look up who did the music. I apologize for that, but yeah, they just took hints, and they just took like, it's you know, if I imagined, I really love it too, because they added a lot of there's very bombastic music, like the reminiscent of Pirates of the Caribbean, for like kind of the main like themes that are the very like heroic bombastic themes that appear, that come up whenever, you know, it's kind of a more like hero action shot, or like very, you know, setting the scene. And but they also do some really sick, like it almost gets into like jazzy territory. They have some saxophones that come in some of the fight scenes, and it's like, ooh, it's so good, because it reminds me of Cowboy Bebop. Cowboy Bebop was so good at incorporating, like, because you don't think about it, but the music is so freaking important. And once I realized that the music was solid, I was like, okay, I will at the very least be able to enjoy this. And they just have saxophones come in at the right time, when like different instruments and different timbres give spice to visual elements that are on the screen. Like, I think they're in the marine yard, and it's when like Nami, Zoro, and Luffy are finally all three like fighting all the marines, trying to get the safe out and get away with the map. And that's when I first noticed that like there's some like saxophones, some horns coming in. And it was like I think it was right when like Zoro, somebody kicked someone, and it was like, and it like, oh, it just came in so perfect. And I'm a huge nerd about that kind of shit, and trust me, music creators and people who work on music for film, I noticed that shit, okay? So big shout out to you. I know that would probably make anyone happy to hear, right? Because I know it would make me really happy if people actually notice that kind of stuff, or if it was the director or the editor who did that. Big shouts out to you. I have a lot of things that I'm really happy about, and that was one of them. But that's gonna kind of clear it up for the production side of things, and that's probably what I was able to that's probably the most glowingly I'll be able to talk about it from here on, besides maybe some final points at the end. But moving on to just like just the characters and the actors themselves, right? So kind of just going through the person who plays Luffy, Iñaki. He's awesome. Okay, I forgot his last name. I'm pretty sure that's his first name, Iñaki. Cool name. And there's a video that Netflix put out where he goes to visit Oda in Tokyo, and it'll make you cry, man, because like Oda is just like, I'm so happy to meet you, like I couldn't imagine anyone else playing Luffy. And like Iñaki tears up and he's like so happy and so grateful that he hears that, because it's like when you hear the original creator of such a beloved story and manga just like tell you something like that, like I would have been fucking bawling, dude. I'll tell you that right now. So that was really nice to see, and it kind of gave me hope. And then because Luffy is kind of an impossible character, right? So he gets the most leeway from me as well, because it's just impossible to really replicate his energy and his vibes, you know? And I think that Iñaki just does a really good job at, like, he has the essence of Luffy. And while there are some awkward parts, and I don't know, there are just some weird kind of like awkward parts in either dialogue or like kind of just the action, him moving around, like his movements, for the most part, really solid. I really don't know how you could do it much better. And that's kind of like a general feeling I had for this live action, which is really good. Is like most of the stuff, I don't know how you could do it much better, which is really awesome. Zoro is really good. I kind of already touched on him. He's a very straightforward character. He's not very complex, which is part of what makes him so great. And then Nami is my favorite Straw Hat. Top 3 favorite characters in One Piece. Reading her arc back in the day, when I was first reading the manga, is what sold me on One Piece. And I was like, okay, I'm going to read the other 700 chapters that were out at the time. This was back in like 2016. I believe the current was in Dressrosa, so it was like 700-800 chapters, and that's like in the first 100 or whatever. I read that arc with Nami and Orange Town, and you know, the whole Arlong arc, right? And that's what really solidified it for me. So and just Nami pre-time skip is my favorite Straw Hat. Unfortunately, I mean, a lot of the things get so crazy post time skip that it's like it's not character driven anymore, which is like, I get it. But yeah, just in general, I love Nami. She's awesome, and the actor who plays her is really great. She's awesome. I think she does a really good job. There are a few things, like now that I've touched on those 3, so like one of the things that I will say was kind of a negative, and I had this feeling going in because I had seen some of it from the trailers and stuff, is like some of the dialogue. Okay, look, some of the dialogue that would have like, some of it's just not good when it's just like, it doesn't seem very natural, and like they're having this kind of like, I think I might have mentioned it before, it's like Marvelized dialogue, where it's like superhero talk, where it's just like, it's very quippy, and like kind of like reusing kind of taglines and bringing it back, and like, you know, you guys are my crew, we're not a crew, and they both say it at the same time. It's like, oh, it's pretty funny the first time, but like the third or fourth time they say it, it's like not when it just worries me when the humor and the banter between the characters goes away from like seeming natural in the One Piece world to like, oh, I'm watching like a Marvel TV series that's on like HBO or something, right? And normally that wouldn't really matter, right? Because it's like, oh, it's kind of the same, but this isn't the same world. It's not the same thing. And I really want to get that shit out of get that shit out of something like One Piece. Do not bring your fucking like superhero like that's the best thing I can use to compare it to, right? Because it's like, look, I love some of the superhero stuff. Like Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man is great. Spider-Man's my favorite superhero, so I will always have a soft spot for him. But you know what I mean. I hope you understand what I mean, where it's just like that kind of generic superhero bantery kind of stuff, where it's like, this isn't helping the story. This is just because you think it sounds cool, or like you're just trying to add that kind of like late 2000s like kind of humor, like comedy humor, movie comedy humor to it, where it's like, I don't need it. I don't need that. Situational stuff is funny enough. Of course, if you have a funny line or a quip every now and then, it's like it's all in English, you know, they wrote the script in English, so it's like that's to be expected. And I might be being a little harsh here, but I will say there are some parts that are just not the most like conductive to like seeming natural, and it's a little awkward. The person who plays Usopp is really good. Usopp's character is really, really good. So slight spoiler here if you haven't seen the third episode, but like the scene where, this is really sad, but like the scene where Usopp's a kid and he like is telling the lie the one more time, and then he goes into his mom, like the guy throws him into his house and tells his mom to like get a control of your kid, and then the mom is just like, I think it's the first time you've seen her too, and they just have a quick little scene, and then she's like, I just, you know, he's like, yeah, I'm telling the lies because dad's really coming back, and then she's like, yeah, and then just dies. Like, I know it must be hard when first it's just a kid actor and a character who's playing the mom, when there's something that's like, there's only one, you have one scene or like one day of shooting in the whole series, and like it's a really heartfelt moment, and like to really try and like punch it through and get it to affect the viewer is really hard. And I understand that, but I started laughing because it was just like, I don't know, the character who played Usopp's mom was like really unconvincing, and then just like the way she died, and then it just cuts back to Usopp, and it's like, here's the thing, and this is gonna start touching on what I want to talk about at the end of this, is like, they are trying to do everything right, because this is how it works in a manga, is you have a scene and then there's a flashback like that, and One Piece is really good at using these flashbacks to show you and get you emotionally invested and give emotional depth to the characters. But when you do it in live action like that, it just doesn't work. And the thing is like, that's just a device. You use that in live action movies all the time. It's just a flashback to show you a character's past and to drive the emotional depth. That's not anything new. So they really could have done that better. There's a lot of stuff like that they could have done better. I will say, moving on to some other characters, the way they did the flashbacks for Luffy as a kid with Shanks and Fusa Village, I forgot what it's called. I was just confusing it with a city that is kind of near me. It's really good. It's really good. So the flashbacks with Luffy and Shanks are good. They're done well, and it's really nice because, you know, sometimes you just see a show that just dumps a huge flashback on you and it shows you the whole thing. And I was wondering if they were going to do it or not, and what they did the tasteful way, which I believe is the right way to do it, where you interweave it through either several episodes or just several parts of the episode, so that like when Buggy has Luffy in the water cage thing and he's like kind of drowning, it cuts back to him drowning in the sea right before Shanks saves him. A lot of iconic moments that I think they did pretty well. you know, like the sea monster, the CG. It's weird. I said this before, but like I am really forgiving with all the CG and VFX kind of stuff too. I thought everything looked pretty good. The kid actor Luffy did a really good job. The character played Makino is pretty good. I didn't hate her, you know. The red haired pirates are really sick. I thought most of them were awesome. The guy who plays Yasop is really convincing too. I don't know, Ben Beckman. I don't know. It's hard when you have an image of a character for like years or a decade, and then you see them a little different. Ben Beckman could have, I don't know. That's a random one where I was like, he looks like him, but he kind of doesn't look like him. But he has like the vibe of Ben Beckman because he's one of my favorites too. Let's talk about Shanks. Okay, so the actor did a really great job. I think I was talking about this with someone too. It's like he looks so goofy with the hat on. Like it just, as someone who like, if I'm wearing a hat like this, I guess you could say I could pass it off, right? But like most hats, I look like as somebody who looks like an idiot in a lot of hats, I can relate. Okay. I don't know what it is, and I really wish they like had changed the hat so that it makes it just. I'm sure they have hundreds of those fucking straw hats on set as props because you're gonna go through them and you need them for different situations. And I'm sure it was even a custom one for Shanks. I just wish they had. I don't know what you could do. Straw hats are hard. Not everyone looks good in a straw hat. He looks like a weird like baby. I don't know. I have this weird thing when I see that actor wearing the straw hat. It looks weird. And these are just some of the goofy things where it's like you're either really able to just give yourself into it and be like, that's cool, they went all out and like they really did that character justice, or it's like, they tried, but that looks goofy as fuck and it's actually distracting and taking away from the show, which is such a hard balance to hit. Again, these are all becoming points that I'm going to address where it's like, try as hard as you want, there are certain things that are just not going to work in a live action, right? Like they chose to keep Usopp's nose just a normal nose. They didn't do the curly eye with the curly eyebrow with Sanji, and I think those were good decisions. But you know, sometimes pulling back isn't the right decision, and sometimes going 100% for what being faithful to the character may not be a good decision. So you can tell they did a lot of thinking, and I think it was a little hit and miss. I will say, I haven't actually seen the episode where Sanji comes in yet. I'm assuming it's like the next episode or two, but so I can't really comment on his character. But I will say, like Kuro, the Black Cat Pirates, he looks. I don't know why. Like he needs black hair, but they did a fucking like jet black. He looks like Steven Seagal. Which he's supposed to be kind of a goofy character, but I don't know. He was more like, it's weird. It's almost like impossible to do, but like the actual like the manga anime character seems a little bit more subdued than the actual live action person, which is weird because he's just wearing like a tailcoat suit kind of thing anyways. But yeah, he looks a little goofy, but it's okay. You know, the Sham and the girl or whatever, or like the two other pirates of the Black Cat Pirates, they're kind of, it starts to I just thought of this, and this is how a great way I can try to explain it is like, it starts to border like live action Dr. Seuss Cat in the Hat with Mike Myers. And when it starts to border that and it doesn't call for that in like the tone of the world or the universe that you're in, like that's when it starts to become distracting, and that's when it starts to just detract from the overall like enjoyment for me personally of the show. So there's a thing where you're seeing all these characters be introduced. Like Garp is really good. I don't actually know if I love. They are taking some liberties with Garp's like personality that I really hope had Oda's full oversight, because it's like it's believable, but it's actually not exactly how it was presented throughout the story, and he's lacking. And there's scenes that there's I need to see some stuff that's gonna happen in later episodes to fully make the judgment on this, but so far in the first 3 episodes, he seems almost like a different character in like certain aspects. where it's like, this is believable. This could be believable based on his actual character, but right now it's leaning a little bit too much one way, where I'm kind of just like, oh, like that doesn't really seem like something Garp would say, or like there's something missing from him right now, which I think they might show a little bit later on. So I'll leave that up to just, me not having watched the whole thing. The actor's really good though, and he looks a lot like Garp. And he, this is the hardest thing too, is because Garp, especially the early kind of arcs, wears like the bulldog like hat or whatever, like non-jokingly, and is like part of his like outfit. And that dude kind of pulled it off, and I like his accent actually too. Kobe is good. Kobe's actor is too good, because you just want to be like, dude, stop being a fucking little pussy. But it's really good because like Kobe is dope, and obviously like he's gonna change and grow over the series. So like, and he's pretty wimpy in the beginning too, when you see him when he first meets Luffy, right? But yeah, so that's just like, it's like Malfoy. The guy who plays Kobe is exactly like Malfoy, Draco Malfoy in Harry Potter, where it's like he almost does too good of a job, where you like really want to just smack the shit out of that guy, and you're like, oh wait, he's just acting, I forgot about that. But that's the best kind of acting, right? I would hope he would take that as a compliment. Not too much else to say on, I guess that I haven't gotten to any other huge big characters. Gold Roger was pretty good. I thought the opening scene was okay. It's really fucking hard to do. I don't know if I loved the Garp gave a speech there, and I don't think he was there in the original, which I don't really love. But I understand why they would put him in there. The guy who plays Mihawk looks really, really good, like Mihawk, but it's also it's really close to that border. I haven't seen him in the other episodes yet, but so that's another, I'll have to wait. But that's another borderline, like, this is some Dr. Seuss looking shit, but that's also just a preference thing. And as far as like the actual acting and stuff, I know I've already kind of touched on it. Most of the acting is pretty good. It's what you would expect from a giant Netflix show, and like, professional good actors. And I do think this will I'll start leading into like my final conclusion and thoughts here. And I think this is a good segue, is some of the acting, as much as I don't like some of the banter and dialogue, some of the Nami, Zoro, Luffy acting, and Usopp coming in too. But, at the start, it really is just the trio. And just seeing some of the, that old school camaraderie, and like being reminded of why you love those characters and some of the dynamics that they have, because as you may or may not know, like later on in One Piece, things just it gets so grandiose and big that like, while you do get these really nice special character interactions every now and then, obviously it's nothing like at the beginning, when it's mostly character driven and the world is a much smaller scale, and you really have time to like breathe and live through these characters. And I do think they did a really good job, and that's what I was saying, like Iñaki does a great job with Luffy, where he kind of like, he taps into the essence of Luffy, and whether or not he always executes it perfectly, like, that's up for debate. But I think he really seems like this like genuine, caring, carefree, like nice person. And if you would never, anyone without that would never ever be able to play Luffy, or even try to play Luffy. So I think it's really good. And you do like, as much as like my main dislike of it would probably be some of like the westernization of some of the things, as just like, obviously it's based on like it's like pirates and they're sailing around the world, and it's not like based in Japan or anything. That's not what I'm talking about. Like, just the westernification of like some of the dialogue and character interactions, and just there's a lot of cringe throughout. Okay, Alvida was pretty cringe. I don't know what it is about her. I really didn't enjoy some of those scenes at the beginning, which was kind of worrying, because that was like the first episode. It just didn't, there's something weird about it. Like a lot of the interactions and some of her movements and stuff too. Like I was saying, like some of the choreography, some of the fight scenes, some of the banter, Yeah, it's so hard too, because it's like, oh my gosh, I almost forgot about Buggy. Sorry. You see some of, it's like you get, it's like there's like every episode is like 10 minutes of like hype, then like a weird 2 or 3 scenes where I'm like, ah, what? Like that was weird. And then like, oh, and there's that. Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. And then, oh, what did he say? Oh, or like, oh my god, that looked so weird the way he did that. Like, it's it's not 50-50, which I'm so glad, because that's kind of what I was expecting, a 50-50 split of like enjoyment and just weird, cringy wincing, right? And I would say it's probably 70-30, at least in the first 3 episodes for me, where it's 70% enjoyment and being glad that I'm watching, and 30% like, oh god. Um, Buggy, the actor playing Buggy is really good. I enjoyed most of his stuff. Um, that's a hard set, and that's a hard like character to pull off too. And I think the VFX were pretty good for most of it. That one, you do start to see some of like, that's a fucking, the chop fruit is just almost impossible to like pull off super smooth. So I totally understand. But yeah, I think they did pretty good. He really, he's another person that like really embodies the character of Buggy, and especially early Buggy, because early Buggy was actually like on a power level scale like pretty up there with Luffy and everyone, right? So he actually like had a bit of like actual like weight to himself, and but he's still kind of like, he like when Arlong comes in, he's like backpedaling and like, oh, I'll do whatever you want, I'll tell you about Luffy, blah, blah, like all that kind of shit. And then on his own, he's like, egotistical and all that stuff. Just wanted to talk about that real quick, because I'd be remiss if I forgot about Buggy, so that would be bad. I believe, I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anyone else. I haven't really, Arlong's been in like 2 scenes, so I can't really talk about him, but he was, the voicing is really great. The fishmen look fucking kind of weird, I'm not gonna lie. It's like Shanks with the hat. It's just like, I can try as hard as I want, I can close my eyes and pretend, but like, they be looking goofy, man. They kind of do be looking goofy, and I'm sorry, but it's just like, I don't know. And this is what I'll use to get into the final thoughts that I have, right? Because I wrote this down, and I want to kind of like go through it, actually, how I wrote it. So here's the thing: did I enjoy it? Am I gonna watch the rest? I think so. I definitely have enjoyed the first 3 episodes. Like I said, 70% full enjoyment, 30% of like not enjoying parts. Some are kind of really, it's weird because like they take their time with everything, which is not, it's fast paced, but they take their time. It's not Game of Thrones last 2 seasons level. It's interwoven nicely, but there are times where it's just like a little slow and boring. Like, I don't know. It's hard, right? Because you're dealing with the first arcs of a story when Oda didn't have as much experience even in his own storytelling and stuff. So there's things that I will give them a pass on that. But yes, overall, I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. But most of my reservations still were there. Like they showed themselves as I was watching, and they turned out to be true. Of the things that I kind of assumed I wasn't going to like and I wasn't going to enjoy. And it wasn't a big shocker, because when I've already seen what a lot of the shots look like, and then you see a few trailers and the scenes, it's like you kind of get it. It's like, okay. I really hope I can enjoy Sanji, but I didn't really like the way the scene that they put out with him and Zeph that I saw already. There's just things that don't work in a live action, right? And the reason, I'm not gonna just leave it at that. I've really been thinking hard, because it's like, if I am going to criticize something like this that really tried super hard to be faithful to the original One Piece anime and manga, I want to be able to like back it up with some of my own reasoning. And so I did a lot of thinking, and I like couldn't sleep last night because I was trying to think about this, and just so much shit going on. But let me just go through what I wrote down, and then I'll kind of expand on it if I need to. But the thing here is like, right, the design language for anime and manga is so stylized and specific for a reason. And that reason is that it lends itself to the actual medium, right? So when you get caught in the crosshairs of like, should we do this thing the same way in a live action that it's done in the anime or in the manga, you get put in this kind of uncanny valley. Like I was saying, like the Dr. Seuss Cat in the Hat like level of like live action. And you get put in this situation that no matter how hard you try, it's gonna look goofy and not good. Like no matter what you do, right? And as much as I hate to say that, it's like it's not the fault of the people who are making it as much as it is an issue of trying to replicate a medium that doesn't lend itself well to real life. And that is the very core of what I believe of like, why do most people just on a visceral gut feeling just kind of shy away from any kind of live action? Before we even had the the history of terrible abominations of live actions, there's a reason why like cosplaying is like cool, and you see some people replicate these characters and it looks awesome, but there's also a weird thing when you see someone with a wig on that's like 6 feet tall, and it's like I don't know, whatever character they're trying to be. Like, there's a student who graduated in Japan. I think it's Kyoto University. They let the people wear whatever they want to wear when they graduate, and one of the people is the most Chad fucking Giga Chad shit ever. They did Gon from the scene where he has really long hair. I'm not going to go into any more details. He has really long hair. If you know, you know. And it's just like, he looks goofy in the anime and like crazy and goofy, right? But for all the right reasons. But it's obviously funny in real life. But if you got a little bit closer to where it's like you're wearing a wig and like you obviously don't look like the character, but you're like the accoutrement that you're wearing, the wig and all the costume and everything is like faithful to the character. There's this level of like, you can enjoy it because you know you're looking at a cosplay and you're like, oh, that's cool, that's a cosplay. Like really love it, like even if you obviously don't look like the character yourself, which is all fun and fine. But when it becomes something like, no, I need to now believe that this is actually the character, there's a line that's crossed and it becomes a totally different thing. And this is why cosplaying for fun at an anime convention and like being a character in a live action are two completely different things. And it just like I've thought about it really hard, and I literally just don't think that you could ever make it as good as the anime or the manga, and I know that's not everyone's trying to make it as good or better, right? They're trying to do a faithful representation that people can still enjoy. I get that, and we'll hold that point. But there's a reason why animation is at its best when it can exaggerate things that we see in real life, right? So this is going off of like animation, right? If every animation was 1-to-1, the exact same as real life, it would literally just be live action at that point, which I think is a really true point. And that's why I prefer kind of like Yuasa Masaki style, like Studio Saru, like kind of like wacky Tatami Galaxy, kind of like exaggerated, funky kind of animation, like think like Ping Pong the animation, like that kind of style where you're really just having fun and you're just like you can be so expressive, right? Because if it's too realistic, it's like you might as well just be shooting live action. And I know it's really hard because there's people like Satoshi Kon who do like really realistic, beautiful like movement through animation and stuff like that, where it's like there's a case for both to be had. But like at a certain point, if you got too photorealistic, you might as well be doing live action, right? That's all I'm trying to say. So it's like taking away the one thing that makes it special and tries to replicate that in the medium that the original thing was trying to stray from. And this is going back to the point of like, animation is trying to do something that live action can't. So when live action tries to do something that animation and manga, the drawn medium, have done, they're inherently lacking the thing that makes the animation and the manga so wonderful and so enjoyable for the readers and viewers. So it's like fighting an unfair like uphill battle, right? And there's this tension that makes it look uncanny or goofy, as I said before, and can never match up to the original intention of the artist. Manga and anime have their place in art for a reason, and unfortunately it can't be reproduced with live action without essentially being not live action. this is probably why, like Scott Pilgrim is regarded as one of the only good live actions. Things like Speed Racer, where it's so goofy and so over the top and is kind of memeing on the whole like, oh my no, like the cuts that were used because it was a show made back in like the 50s and 60s, like the original Speed Racer stuff. It was able to do the thing really well that like made the animation or the original manga and stuff like so enjoyable and gave it its own style, right? And Scott Pilgrim is very based in a very realistic world of where we all live, and like obviously there's crazy shit that's happening and it's very not like real, but it's kind of like a boy has a crush on a girl and it goes from there, right? One Piece is not like that. It's in a totally different universe, like in every sense of the word. Like One Piece is not as easily replicated as the style of Scott Pilgrim, right? And the other thing too is like Scott Pilgrim, relies heavily on like already established like, Western humor, American humor, UK humor, British humor, stuff like that, right? So it's just you're in a different universe. That's all I'm trying to say. It's a totally different universe, and I wanted to make that distinction because like that was my like nerdy kind of explanation of it, of like why I truly feel most live actions are shit and I have a hard time enjoying them, is because that it's it just seems unnecessary most of the time. And for a lot of these projects, it's been a huge cash grab, or it's just like we don't know what to do, so we're gonna remake Moana for the third time, but this time we're doing it in live action, right? When you see trends like that and you see things like that happening, you can't help but be a little bit jaded, and I can't help but be a little bit jaded and just be like, there's no fucking way I'm watching a Moana live action because I don't care. I could watch the original movie, and you could be like, hey Sam, no one cares, like people just want to see another movie, and that's great. It's a fair argument. Maybe they have kids and seeing another version of Moana would be fucking awesome, and maybe it's good and it's cool that The Rock gets to play his character or something like that. But I'm also able to have my own opinion of like, I'd like to see people making shows and stuff. I'd like to see them held to a higher standard. I'd like to see companies like Disney stop just fucking remaking things for the 6th time. Like the Lion King live action was just like pretty god awful, and there's a reason. It's because this lions. It's live action, real life lions walking around, CG lions walking around, doing the things that like is so beautifully done in the animation, and it just kills every fun part of that movie by trying to be too realistic. I think that's a perfect example of like how you don't do a live action. And so here's what I'll say about the One Piece live action is I think they obviously they worked with Oda, and I mean like it could have been so much worse, because it doesn't matter if Oda's working with them. He can't control everything. There's not enough hours in the day. I guess he could have put the kibosh on it. I'm sure that was probably written in his contract, I hope. But the one thing I will just admit first and foremost is that I think they really tried their best, and they paid very close attention to detail in like almost every single thing they did. And like I said, like it's up there, like it might be the best you can do for a live action, at least for something like One Piece, but to me it just still doesn't really add up to like that much, unfortunately. And I really mean that in the best way possible, where it's like, if you ask me to give this a score, I hate giving things scores, but like if you put a gun to my head and ask me, because I was like, I feel like it's just running away if I don't actually think about like where I would rank it or how I would rate it. I think I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10, or maybe a 7 on certain parts. Like there are parts that were 8 out of 10 to me, and then there are parts that are 2 out of 10 to me. And I just think overall so far like a 6.5 maybe. But here's the thing, is like the real score that I would give this live action is an A for effort. I know it sounds kind of like I'm like memeing, but I legit mean that. Like, A for effort. They really put the time in and they tried extremely hard, and I think they did a really good job throughout most of it. But my main worry throughout this whole thing is just like, it just doesn't really work as a live action. It never was going to. It never will. Like, if you think you can sit here and tell me like, don't worry, dude, 25 years from now, when they're in the Wano arc, you know, and all the actors are 70 years old, like, it's gonna be fine. Like, they're just gonna cycle through new Luffys every 10 years. It's fine. Like, unfortunately, there are certain logistics and things where I'm just like, why would you even bother? Like, we haven't seen Chopper yet either. That's like a do or die, make or break kind of thing. Like, Frankie, I mean, Jesus Christ. I guess Frankie before pre-time skip is okay, but like, there are just certain things where it's like, you know, you'll never ever be able to like continue the love and quality you put into this first season. So what's the point? Why would you even make it? And I was trying to think of what would my answer be if I was helping making that show, or if I was on the other side. And I think here's the thing, is now that I've seen some of it, I would agree that it was worth it. It was worth it making this one season. I really hope they don't make another season. I really hope it just stops. Honestly, I just do. I'll let you know if my feelings change on that after finishing the first season, but I hope this just stops, because people like it. It's critically gotten really good scores, like Rotten Tomatoes, and the audience score is like really high. Like, I think Rotten Tomatoes is like 80%, and then like fans are like 90+%, which is fucking crazy. But I can't help but feel that's like a lot of the OG One Piece nerds who are just kind of like loving it, because as I was watching it, it was like watching, I call them nostalgia goggles, and I had my nostalgia goggles on, and every scene was rose tinted, rose colored, you know, like the saying, like just seeing, I couldn't tell if I was enjoying certain parts of it because of the actual live action, or just because I love One Piece so much. And I guess that's a good problem to have. You still like, oh well, I'm enjoying it, so that's good. It's a good representation of what you can do if you really do the live action thing right. But I don't know. It's hard to replicate that level of quality and attention to detail that they put in. So I'm a little worried that people will see this and then just a ton of other live actions get greenlit, and then you just got like tons of shitty live actions coming out after this, because that's the trend. That's the thing that happens, is Netflix sees what's popping off, and then they're like, all right, let's greenlight 100 more of these, and let's just run it into the ground, and let's fuck everything up, and let's just ruin stories for people, give bad representations of them, and most of the time then it's all just money driven at that point too, right? So what do? I don't know. All I can do is say that I was happily surprised to see that there's a lot of love and care put into the creating of the One Piece live action, and I hope they just stop there. Go out on a high, man. Like, you did something none of us thought was possible, and that like tons of people, including myself at the start, were just kind of rooting for you to fail and just wrote it off, you know. And you surpassed my expectations, and you did a really good job. So just stop, don't make any more, and just leave it at that. That's how I feel. And it's like you're opening Pandora's box, you know, like you just kind of want live actions just to be shitty forever, so you don't have to worry about them anymore, because they really do kind of just introduce this bad aspect of like not doing the original IP justice. And for people who don't read the original source material or see the original anime and stuff like that, they're getting a terrible representation. Like, if you're an author and you wrote a book, would you want them to make a movie that's just dog shit about the book? You know, this has happened, obviously. It's kind of the same thing to me, where it's like they made a movie about Fahrenheit 451, one of my favorite books of all time, and I will never, ever, ever watch that movie. was considering it, heard kind of mixed things about it, heard certain ways they did things. I was like, nope, not for me. I'm not going to do it. I cannot ruin that book for me. And I think it's even worse when somebody hasn't read that book or would have read that book, but they saw the movie and it's shit, so they kind of just write it off, right? So I think there is a responsibility. That's all I'm trying to say. There's a responsibility that the people who greenlight these fucking live actions and these movies, these remakes and all this shit, you have a responsibility to the original artist. And while the people who made the live action, the One Piece live action, I think did a really good job. And I can't be mad at them. I can't be mad at them. I'm happily surprised at how overall it turned out, right? Not in love with it, but I don't hate it, and I enjoyed a lot of it. They held up their end of the bargain. They treated the responsibility with respect, but not everyone's going to do that. And I think 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the opposite kind of thing, where you're just fucking over artists and just throwing out more shit into the world, where it's like we could be making so much better movies and art and stuff like that. So those are my thoughts. I mean, I didn't know if this was gonna be short or long. It was a long one. I'm sorry. If you stuck around for the whole thing, let me know your thoughts, because I'm assuming if you listen to me talk that much about this fucking 3 episodes of the live action, that you have some thoughts yourself. So if you have totally different opinions, if you think there's something I'm biased about or just overlooking or not being fair about, let me know, because I'm open to discussion. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I do have some strong beliefs in most of my thoughts, but I tried my best to very, very much so, like, do the due diligence of, like, sitting down with my thoughts, being kind of, thoughtful about it, being very thoughtful about how I wanted to approach this. And yeah, A for effort, that's what I'll give it. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.